Hello guys, Tony here. Welcome back to the channel. Apologies for the lack of uploads lately. I was busy with exams and then I was occupied with the inevitable post-exam celebrations, and then it was Christmas, New Year, but I'm here now. I was informed by some of my friends in the year below that starting this year, MD1s need to have their clinical school preferences submitted by the 13th of Jan, which is a lot earlier than what we had to do. Since most of you guys will not have done a clinical school tour, you may be a bit confused with how to rank your preferences. So I've talked to a few people in my year level, as well as a few people in the year level above, about how they did their preferences, and here are some of the things that you should consider. Before I start, this video is going to mainly focus on the Inner East and Northwest regions, since the decision process is quite similar for these two areas. If you're in a rural zone, I have linked in the description a fantastic handbook made by the Outlook RHC, which is UniMelb's dedicated rural and Indigenous health club. And that should answer any questions you may have much better than I could. And I also would like to point out that this video is quite subjective in nature. I haven't asked a lot of people, only a few people max from each clinical schools about their experiences. So please take everything I say with a grain of salt. Okay, now back to the things you should consider. Number 1, location. Yes, it may seem trivial, but location is one of the more important things. Using myself as an example, I'm in the Inner East Zone, and although Austin was my favorite hospital after having done the school tours, I had to put it last on my preference because it would be a trek for me to commute there every day, and I didn't want to move to Heidelberg. Now, certain rotations at the hospitals can start very early in the mornings, or they can finish quite late in the evenings, and you don't really want to be spending hours commuting to the hospital. Another thing to keep in mind is that certain hospitals can have their own clinical schools split up into different regions. For example, the Western is split into Sunshine and Footscray campuses, and you may have to commute between the two on the same day. So a bit of forward planning may be required in order to not miss out on any tubes, etc. And also, if you have a part-time job and you want to keep doing it, that won't really be feasible if your hospital is really far away. So keep that in mind as well. Number 2, structure of teaching. Different clinical schools have different styles of teaching, and this really depends on what type of learner you are. For example, Austin is quite renowned for its flexible teaching structure, so if you're the type of person that likes to take the initiative, or you are already interested in a field of medicine, let's say surgery, you can definitely tailor your learning more towards what you're interested in, and you can receive extra tutors from registrars and consultants when you're on the wards. I heard Epworth is also quite self-directed. On the other hand, if you prefer more structured teaching style, similar to what we have at uni, and you want to get through the bulk of examinable content, St. Vincent's might be a better fit for you, and this may allow you to have a more complete set of knowledge across multiple fields of medicine. At the end of the day, though, it's really, it kind of really depends on what type of learner you are. Number 3, friends. At first glance, this may not seem super important. I mean, you can always make new friends at the clinical school, and everyone's still from the same cohort, so you should know each other. But keep in mind that second year can be quite stressful, not just in terms of the workload, but the fact that you may be put into stressful situations on a daily basis. You're essentially the hospital, you're there 8 to 5, it's like a full-time job, and having a group of people that you have a tight bond with can be a great pillar of support. This is especially the case if you are at a rural school. A lot of rural students I spoke to said that having a friend or a group of friends is the make or break of their MD2 experience. Personally, this was a pretty big factor for me as well, and I did get together with my friends and discussed which clinical school we should go to together. Number 4, facilities. Now this is an interesting one. As I am in the Inner East Zone, I went on all 4 clinical school tours. At the Austin, they were saying how they have the only liver transplant unit in Victoria or something. And at RMH, they were saying how they have this or that expensive machine. Don't let these things sway your decision. Remember that as second-year medical students, we will almost never get to use those fancy machines. And all the med students from Austin I talked to have never set foot in the liver transplant ward, if that's a thing. I think the learning facilities that students will have access to will be quite comparable between all the clinical schools. On the other hand, common rooms, now that's a different story. On my tour, RMH had by far the worst common room. St. Vincent's common room was good, but forgettable. Epworth's common room was a bit small, but they had a PS2 and a copy of The Simpsons Hit and Run. Great game. And I liked Austin's common room best. Austin also had a ton of windows, which means a lot of natural lighting, and it's by far the best looking hospital. Speaking of facilities, it is also important to consider what is around the hospital. Now, one of the big selling points of RMH for me was the fact that it's surrounded by cafes, trams. There's Melbourne Uni right next door, so I could use the uni's libraries if I want, and that kind of stuff. Austin, on the other hand, great hospital, but to the best of my knowledge, not much you could do around the area. Number 5, culture. Much like teaching facilities, culture is another one of those things that people like to bring up. For example, RMH has a gunner, cutthroat culture, Austin has a party culture, etc., etc. And I don't think these claims have any real significance. Culture is formed by people, namely the people in your year level at your hospital. I'm sure that having done an undergraduate degree, you can appreciate that the general vibe in your year level may not be the same as the year level above you or the one below you. So it doesn't really matter what the current culture is at the hospital that you want to go to. That culture will change when you and your friends get there, and you guys will define that culture. And in case you guys are concerned about senior consultants or doctors bullying medical students, I've heard that all the clinical schools have severely cracked down on that kind of behavior, so I don't think it's something we need to worry about. Number 6, interviews and internships. Now, I don't have a lot of data on this personally, and I haven't even started MD2 yet. But I did hear that certain hospitals are rumoured to preferentially give interview opportunities to students who completed their clinical school years at that hospital. So, the interviews are for selecting new interns for the hospital. Personally, I wouldn't stress too much about it. I don't think that at this stage, any of us would really have a clear idea, of what kind of hospital we would like to end up working at. And personally, I would like to have worked at several hospitals, find out which one I like the most, and then, work there for good. It's like dating. What would you rather do? Marry the first person you have dated, or having dated a few people so you know what kind of qualities you're looking for in a lifelong partner? Having said that, note that private hospitals such as Epworth do not guarantee interviews, and as of 2019, Epworth does not have any interns. This may be something to consider if you're an international student. Don't quote me on this, but I believe that internships are not guaranteed for you guys. So you may have to do a bit more investigating into this matter. But unfortunately, I don't have the data on this. Okay, so to put all that into perspective, I will talk about how I place my preferences. I'm in the inner east zone, and my preferences from first to last place is RMH, Epworth, St. Vincent's, and Austin. So location, that was a big factor for me, so I placed Austin last. For structure of teaching, I'm the type of person that would answer with, I've got no idea, when relatives ask me what type of doctor I would like to be. So I wanted more structured type of teaching, like the ones offered at RMH or St. Vincent's. In terms of my friends, most of my close friends in Inner East picked RMH as their first preference, and I wanted to share my MD journey with them. In terms of facilities, RMH lost points in terms of common room, but gained points in what's around the area. Austin, on the other hand, gained points in being a beautiful hospital, but lost points in what's around the area. Epworth also gained points for looking very nice indeed, and there's quite a few cafes and stuff around the hospital. In terms of culture, that didn't really concern me. The hazing culture has long been removed from the clinical schools, and that was the only thing I was worried about. And for interviews and internships, that wasn't a big concern for me. I still have no idea what hospital I would like to work at yet. So yeah, that's that. And lastly, I would just like to stress that regardless of what clinical school you end up at, whether it's your first preference or not, you're still going to be getting some of the best education and training a medical student could ask for. And a lot of the people that I spoke to who didn't get their first preferences ended up loving the experiences they had anyways. And besides, no clinical school is perfect. None of them are, one size fits all. I think it's all about making the most out of the opportunities that you're given. Anyways, I hope that was helpful. I have attached a document by ARMS comparing the different clinical schools. It's very comprehensive. Make sure you go and check it out in the description. I also made a table comparing some of the clinical schools with my mates. There might be some overlap with the ARMS handbook, but it's there if you want some more opinions, I guess. And I have also attached a handbook made by Outlook RHC. Big shout out to them. If you have any questions, drop them in the comment section and I'll try and answer them. To the upcoming MD ones, huge congrats on getting into med. I'm very excited to meet you all, and I wish you all the best of luck in your MD journey. As always, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video.